On your Tuesday episode of Locked On Raptors, we take a look at three forward prospects who could be in the mix for the Raptors at number 9, including the guy in this draft who is the most akin to ice cream.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Tuesday, May the 27th, and I am your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on Blue Sky. You can find the show on Instagram, and you can join us, of course, as always, in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join. We'd love to see you there. It's a great place to come hang out, talk ball, talk about draft guys, etc., etc. It's, again, 100% free to join, as always. Come be part of our listener community. On today's show, we keep on talking draft guys, picking up the thread we left off on Friday, where we talked about three big men who could be in the mix for the Raptors at number 9. We're going to talk about some forwards today who could, much like those guys, be in the mix for the Toronto Raptors when they are on the clock on draft night later, or I guess next month, or almost this month. We're almost in June, baby. It's nearing the time where we can say draft season is upon us. It's very, very, very near. Either way, we're going to talk about Carter Bryant, who's cool and interesting, if a little bit underwhelming as an overall prospect. We'll talk about Rasheer Fleming, who came on the scene big time this year. But I do want to start here talking about Collin Murray-Boyles, who we talked a little bit about last week on the show when we played Pick 1 with Vivek Jacob. You can go check that show. It was a lot of fun, but we didn't really dive deep into any of the prospects we talked about that day. We had like 9 guys on that show. And so wanted to spend a little time to talk about Collin Murray-Boyles, who is a guy who just checks so many boxes for me, and it breaks my heart because I just don't think the fit in Toronto makes a lick of sense. On the note of licks, to me, he is the most ice cream adjacent player in this draft, in that everything looks wonderful. It's a perfect thing, a perfect prospect. Ice cream is the perfect food. Collin Murray-Boyles is like a perfect prospect for me, someone who loves bowling ball men who throw cool passes, who play incredible defense, who have feel and connective passing touch, and they dunk and they score around the rim. All of these things are things I love, much like ice cream is a thing I love in all forms, but you can't have ice cream all the time. It's got to be part of a balanced diet. And I just don't know if the Raptors have space for a pint of Ben & Jerry's with their current mix, which I think is what it would sort of be to go for Collin Murray-Boyles. It's a decadent pick. It's a guy who does a lot of things. He does so much that this team could use that would be fun to watch on this team. I'm not going to be mad if he is the pick because of all the cool things he brings to the table, but I do think that the Toronto Raptors are just maybe the worst place he could go to find NBA success. And we'll get into it. So Collin Murray-Boyles, 20 years old in a couple of weeks, a sophomore, played for South Carolina in college, 16.8 points a game, 8.3 rebounds this past season as well, 2.4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1.3 blocks, led the SEC, a very good conference in field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage, 26.5% from 3 on very low volume. Therein lies the concern. 63% true shooting, nearly 71% from the line. And 6'7", 7-foot wingspan. And like I said, just checks a lot of boxes that I typically like in a prospect. I love like sort of ground bound, super like nasty built, incredible defensive, multi-positional defenders. That is what Collin Murray-Boyles is. His calling card is defense. He is someone who I think is going to step into the NBA and be a playoff level defender from day one. It's rare that rookies step in the league and are good at defense. He, to me, checks all the boxes of one of those outliers who comes in and from day one is just like a good NBA defender. Absolutely a brick wall of a man, a bowling ball of a man, a bowling ball wrapped into a brick wall of a man. Like, you can't move the dude. He is like, when he's guarding in the post, he's kind of like, you know, there was always this question when Kyle Lowry played for the Raptors, like, what if Kyle Lowry were 6'7"? That's kind of the deal defensively when he's guarding in the post. Kyle Lowry couldn't be moved by anybody. Same idea with Collin Murray-Boyles. If Kyle Lowry was a fire hydrant, Collin Murray-Boyles is like an industrial grade fire hydrant. He's just huge and can't be moved. Even against bigger guys, he just has this low center of gravity. You can't move him off his spot. It's a thrill to watch. Defensively, like versatility-wise, he can switch. I think he's going to end up being a true 1-5 defender, of which there are not many in the NBA, and I don't throw that around lightly. I think he's just going to rock as a defensive player. If I had to put a bet on anyone in this class being an all-defense guy at some point in their career, I think he'd be on the short list with Cooper Flagg and Kaman Malawach as the guys I would put money on to make all defense teams at some point in their career. I just think he's that good on the defensive end. And look, as someone who has said, I think the Raptors need to find reinforcements for their defense to ensure that the progress they made this past season doesn't fall off. I still think there are some holes they have to address. There's some just like need for defensive talent that they need to go and target, I think, whether it's the draft, free agency, trades, whatever it is. Like, I don't think the defensive puzzle is complete for this team. Like, Collin Murray-Boyles would check those boxes as well. 100%, he would be defensive reinforcements for this team that would help solidify them as a defensive team that can hang going into the future. I think, in theory, you play him next to Scotty Barnes in a front court. Yeah, you're kind of small, but those two guys, I think, could cause all kinds of havoc together. It's just when it comes to the other stuff, the offensive end of the floor in particular, and the shooting is just like the big giant red flag. A lot of the offensive stuff is great. Really nice connective passer, can be a dribble handoff hub. His handle, we'll talk about a couple of guys later on in Carter Bryant and Rasheer Fleming, whose handles just like aren't quite there. Not a problem at all for Collin Murray-Boyles. He can beat guys off the bounce. He can sort of do it in close quarters as well. Beat a guy from the free throw line, get him to the, get to the rim before he can get the shot blocked, all of that stuff. Like, I think the handle's very real. He gets to the line a lot, 5.9 attempts a game. So many really good indicators. He's a prospect I love, and it's why it breaks my heart that I just don't think the fit in Toronto is going to work. And it's all because of the shooting. It really just comes down to that. 26.5% this year at college. And I think with his style of play, with the stuff he does with the ball in his hands, there's just way too much overlap there with Scotty Barnes, the guy who this whole thing is built around. And the one thing that I think every question, every decision the Raptors make has to be kind of filtered through is, does this work on a Scotty Barnes team? And I just don't know if you'd be setting up Collin Murray-Boyles to find success in the NBA if you put him on a team and he's essentially Scotty Barnes' backup, where it's going to be difficult to find lineups where they work together. You'll find some, sure, but without a true spacing big man on this team, that gets difficult to sort of balance size and shooting and all the things you got to have on the floor in the modern NBA. Again, I think you can get by sometimes with Scotty and Collin Murray-Boyles playing at the 4-5. Scotty's got to get better, back to where he was, a season prior to this one from 3 to make it viable. I think maybe that's in him. I don't know, but it's just, Collin Murray-Boyles is going to be a good basketball player. He's going to be a damn good player. I just don't know if he'll be set up to fully optimize himself or if the Raptors will have the space to fully optimize him in Toronto. It's like a match made in hell as far as fit goes. And again, it completely breaks my heart because he's a prospect that I adore in a vacuum, is absolutely my type. In previous years, if they didn't have Scotty Barnes on the team, I'd be pounding the table. Draft this guy now because he rules. And I'm just so worried about the shot. Again, 26.5% from deep on just one attempt a game. We talked a couple weeks ago with Rich Stamen from Locked On NBA Big Board. He's optimistic about the shot. I do not share that optimism. And look, Rich knows way more about prospects than I do. He does this as a full-time gig year-round. I parachute in for a couple of months and masquerade as an expert. It's totally possible I'm missing something with the three-point shot with Collin Murray-Boyles. But if you watch the shot, it's very, let's say, ground-bound. He doesn't get a whole lot of elevation. He leaves it short quite a bit. He gets it up pretty quick. Like, the mechanics look fine, but I worry about, if he can't get it to the rim regularly and he's leaving it front rim often on the three-point line in college. What does that mean for the NBA three-point line? That's a concern for me. And look, If the Raptors take him, first of all, I wouldn't be remotely surprised if he's the pick because despite my reservations, he's just such a Raptors-coded prospect. It's kind of scary. And if they take him, it's surely because they think they can figure out the shot, which is, a fair thing. They trust themselves, but it's also a thing they've done before. And I would say it's been a mixed bag as far as results in terms of trying to turn these kind of toolsy guys who can't shoot into the shooters. Pascal Siakam was always a bit of an iffy shooter in Toronto, had his moments here and there, some great seasons and some less great seasons. Scotty Barnes, it's been a roller coaster with more downs than ups. Jonathan Mobo, sort of promising, but always still, it's a ways away and it may never come. Probably won't ever come for being real. OG Anunoby was drafted as a guy who was expected to be a good three-point shooter, even though his college numbers weren't like incredible. It was always kind of assumed, yeah, that guy's going to be a good shooter, no problem. The one guy they've drafted in the last 10 years who they kind of turned from a non-shooter into a knockdown guy was Norman Powell. And that was 10 years ago, 2015 in the second round. Maybe they're due. Maybe you take Collin Murray-Boyles, and if he does shoot, I think you look like a genius if you're Masai Ujiri and Bobby Webster because all the other stuff is there for him to be successful in the NBA. I just think a context where it's not dependent upon him figuring things out from three for it to really work is so necessary for him, right? If he went to a team with lots of space, if we went to go and play for the Thunder next to Chet Holmgren as just this like powerful four with all that shooting around him, I think it would be a wonderful fit. If he went and played next to Wemby, as much as their guard situations maybe not chock full of shooting, if he went and played next to Wemby, it'd be a beautiful fit. A spacing big is just such an easy compliment to what Collin Murray-Boyles does. The Raptors don't have that right now, and I think it'd be setting him up to fail. And so it breaks my heart to say that I don't think the Raptors should be taking him at 9. If they do, I'll understand it because of all the stuff we've talked about, and I will secretly be very happy because I'm excited to watch that dude play basketball for the team I like. But I am very concerned about the fit, and I think fit has to matter when you are drafting. Like in this spot where it's kind of a wide range of guys with similar upsides and all have these flaws and swing skills, I do think fit matters in order for these guys to actually hit their high-end outcomes. And I just think it's better for both sides if Collin Murray-Boyles is not on the Raptors. I hope he goes to the Western Conference and doesn't torment the Toronto Raptors for years, because that could totally happen. This guy who checks all their boxes, who they don't take because of fit, and he just goes and becomes awesome. Like, yeah, do that at West. I'm fine. I just think the fit is so rough with Scotty Barnes. And if Scotty Barnes weren't entrenched as the main guy on this team, it'd be a different story. But he is, and we don't live in a vacuum. And so that's my Collin Murray-Boyles thoughts for you. I really, really like him, man. It's a bummer that I think it's such a bad fit. We're going to come back on the other side and get into a guy who would be a much better fit, who's less of an interesting prospect to me, maybe lower upside. We're going to talk about Rasheer Fleming, who's been a bit of a riser over the course of this year, who's got some fun stuff going on too. Not to make it sound too negative. He's cool, but is he cool enough? We'll talk about Rasheer Fleming coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. The days are getting longer, the weather is warming up, and people are spending more time outside, which means it's the perfect time to refresh your outdoor space. Whether you're working in a big backyard or small balcony, Wayfair has everything you need to make it feel more like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all, and at prices that fit your budget. Let me tell you, it was a beautiful day yesterday in Hamilton, Ontario. Sun was out. My yard was nice and shaded. I took a nap outside on my outdoor couch. It ruled. If you want to go get yourself some nap gear for you to have a nap in your backyard, Wayfair should be the place that you go. Check it out. Shop a huge selection of outdoor furniture online this summer. Get outside with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. Back at it here on your Tuesday edition of Locked On Raptors, talking about some forwards who might be in the mix for the Raptors at number 9. And still licking my wounds from loving everything about Collin Murray-Boyles and just not thinking the fit's right. Wanting to eat the ice cream, but knowing it's going to give me the rumblies if I do. Let's talk about Rasheer Fleming, who is a 6'9" junior out of St. Joe's, 7'5" wingspan as measured at the combine, one of the longer wingspans measured there. I think one of the most positive wingspans as well, as far as the relationship between wingspan and height. He measures very well. He's a large athletic man. Will be 21 when the season gets going. He turns 21 in July. This past season, he really kind of, had a bit of a glow up at St. Joe's after a couple of sort of middling seasons there in the Atlantic 10. He goes 14.7 points a game, 8.5 boards, 1.3 assists, 1.4 steals, and a block and a half, 63.8% true shooting, 39% from downtown, 64.6% on his twos. That's encouraging. He's really interesting player, 74% from the line as well. The thing with me with Rasheer Fleming is, first of all, I think he's a 4-5, not a 3-4. If we're talking about forwards, he kind of just feels like he's going to be a 4 in the NBA, a guy who can space, hit corner threes for you, and defend, like a classic 3 and D4. Basically has the same physical measurements as Thomas Sorber, an inch shorter on the wingspan, about the same height. We talked about Sorber last week when we were talking about big men. And I do think, he just kind of does more big man things than he does wing things. I think he will be a guy who plays a lot of small ball center in the NBA because of his length and because the shooting, I think, offers a lot of interesting functionality to lineups where he's playing at the 5. I could totally see Rasheer Fleming sitting in there in lineups with Scotty Barnes as the, nominal 5, kind of doing similar things defensively as this sort of disruptor, this free safety, this roamer, this help side rim protector, all that stuff. Kind of an interesting combination. And if you put that shooting 39% on pretty high volume, 4.5 attempts a game next to Scotty Barnes, that makes a lot of sense to me. Even again, if you're kind of small, I know we've talked about the need for backup center play. I get it from the stance of like, you need someone who's like a traditional center who can fill in as a backup for you if Jakob Poeltl misses time. As far as like when Jak's healthy, I think sprinkling in different types of lineups where you have smaller looks and Scotty at the 5 or a guy like Rasheer Fleming, if you take him at the 5, is a totally fine way to fill in those minutes. You don't need a traditional straight up Jakob Poeltl classic backup big man necessarily to be successful. It's just in the event he gets hurt, you'd like to have some insurance. Either way, going back to what Rasheer Fleming does, he really is on offense like a pretty streamlined player. He takes catch and shoot threes. He gets on the offensive glass. He kind of puts in garbage buckets. He'll cut for you, finish at the rim. He's very much a play finisher, a possession finisher, really. Like he'll turn it over more than he gets assists as well. That's kind of the thing. There's not a whole lot in terms of like craft to his game. It's very, I'm going to bomb this 3, or I'm going to throw down this dunk, or I'm going to get this offensive putback. And the sort of road between the perimeter and the rim, all kinds of obstacles and potholes on that road for Rasheer Fleming. Doesn't have a particularly good handle. When he gets to the rim, he finishes fine. 69% at the rim. Very good. Good in transition. Good on spot ups. Good in cutting. But again, it's that stuff where he has to put the ball on the deck where it's a little bit hairy. He kind of like gets it over his skis, quite literally. Like he'll have this sort of forward momentum on his drives where he's like almost like running down a hill too fast, where he's almost like going head over heels just because he just like, his head is the top of his body is moving faster than his legs are, and the ball's out in front of him, and he's just kind of out of control. A lot of adventures in driving for Rasheer Fleming, trying to get to the rim just when he has the ball in his hands, attacking a closeout, stuff like that. But again, there's a lot of stuff going on there that's good. I just think for me, my reservation with Fleming is that we're kind of past the point in the NBA where just stationary standstill corner shooting is enough. Like the days of Patrick Patterson being a plus minus god by just standing in the corner, taking threes and defending and having zero juice with the ball in his hands, like those are just gone. You have to be able to do stuff with the ball in your hands, especially when you play on for the Toronto Raptors and the Darko ball offense, where everything is contingent upon turning little advantages into bigger advantages with quick decision-making and making plays with the ball and sort of layering little advantages on top of one another by being able to do the next thing in the sequence. And like I said, with Fleming, he's very much a possession ender. It gets to him very often, a shot's going up or he's turning it over and the possession is over. There's not a whole lot of, completing the swing, making the next pass in the sequence, all of that stuff. And certainly not a whole lot of putting it on the deck and making the next right play to get the defense in rotation and put them on their heels. And so that's my concern with Fleming. That's not to say he can't be a good NBA player. I think the defense and the three-point shooting, that's going to get you on the floor, right? If you can be like a help side rim protector as a 4 who also hits 39% of your threes, hits them at a high clip, then boom, you're an NBA player for 10 years. Congratulations. I just think the upside at 9, I think they should be aiming a little bit higher with the upside. That's why I'd be okay with the Collin Murray-Boyles pick, because if the shooting does hit, the upside there is pretty immense. With Fleming, I just think with the lack of a handle, and that's not to say guys can't figure this out, but you got to draft for what guys have shown, I think. And, is there a projectable improvement? We'll talk about a guy coming up next who I think has a little bit more of that to his game in Carter Bryant. With Fleming, it does feel like it's going to be this kind of streamlined, dunks and threes package where there's not a whole lot of self-creation, basically always reliant upon others to service him the ball to get him looks. And again, that's not a bad thing, especially if you're playing next to Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, guys who are going to have the ball a lot. Having a guy who can spot up off the ball, who's also big and can defend, that's not a bad thing by any means. But is that an excellent bench player, an okay fifth starter, or is that someone who can be a really truly additive high level starter for a good team? I probably err more towards the former than the latter with Rasheer Fleming. Negative assist to turnover ratio is a bit of a red flag for me, especially for a guy who, we'll talk Collin Murray-Boyles, basically even assist to turnover ratio, but he's trying stuff. And he was a big component of what that South Carolina team was doing. He was heavily involved in so much of their stuff. He was more likely to turn it over. Rasheer Fleming having 1.3 assists to 1.5 turnovers a game as someone who wasn't really doing a whole lot with the ball in his hands, that's a little bit of a red flag for me too, as far as projecting forward. Can he be that more sort of connective piece for you? I also wouldn't describe him as he's definitely athletic. I wouldn't describe him as graceful or fluid necessarily. It is kind of bull in the china shop type thing. It's, again, there's a lot to like it. He throws down a bunch of dunks. He'll get up, he can be an above the rim finisher, that type of thing. But when he has the ball in his hands, I don't see there being this sort of smooth ease with how he moves that's going to sort of portend really good on-ball craft as time goes forward. And so, yeah, I think at 9, it's a little bit rich for Rasheer Fleming. I know he's a favorite of some, and he's going to have a high NBA floor. I think he's going to be in the league for a long time. 6'9" guys who can shoot threes and defend, you're going to be around a while. I just don't know if you're optimizing the odds of this pick really hitting if Rasheer Fleming is the guy. And he's going to be a multi-contract NBA player. There's no doubt about it. And there are worse things to get at number 9. I just think there are going to be guys with more upside still left on the board when the Raptors pick that I'd rather see them try and target. One of those guys is Carter Bryant from Arizona. We're going to talk about him to close out the show next. He's cool. He's also kind of a mystery box because he barely played in college. We'll talk about Carter Bryant, what makes him a potentially really nice fit with the Raptors going forward, coming up in just one sec. Wrapping it up here on your Forward Tuesday. Great alliteration, Sean. We're talking about forwards, and it's Tuesday for the upcoming NBA draft. Guys who might be in the mix at number 9. And last guy on our docket here today is Carter Bryant, who I know is a favorite of a lot of folks in the Locked On Raptors Discord. The draft guys chatting there is popping off every single day. Lots of good stuff going on in there. Lots of good opinions, lots of bad opinions as well. If you're one particular person, you know who you are. And Carter Bryant, is kind of a growing favorite. And to me, honestly, for me as well, I think he is someone who is kind of nudging into the sort of short list for me of guys for the Raptors at number 9. He's 19 years old, won't turn 20 until November, 6'7", 7-foot wingspan, played at Arizona this year, only 19.3 minutes a game for Arizona, did not play a ton, and the numbers just aren't there as a result. 6.5 points a game, 4.1 boards, an assist, a steal, a block, 37% from deep, 59% from 2, 69.5% from the line, 59.3% true shooting overall. And again, didn't play a ton for the Wildcats, played more as the season went along. and didn't take anything off the table, certainly when he did play. I think there is a lot he does to just play winning basketball, even at his young age, where there's still so much to figure out. He's definitely more classically wing coded than Rasheer Fleming or Collin Murray-Boyles, who I think are both going to spend most of their time at the 4 and 5. I think Carter Bryant's like a classic 3. He's just going to be your classic wing stopper, shoot threes, and then see where else he can fill in the game from there. But I think he settles in as a 3 pretty comfortably with the ability to size up and, guard at the 4, probably size down, guard at the 2, maybe switch on to some small guards from time to time. Like, I do think there's going to be some switchability there. He's also just like a really damn good athlete, and it pops off the screen. He's not like Zion Williamson jumping totally out of the gym. He just, to me, he's like one of these athletes who looks like he's always very much in control of his body. Just like he looks like he could crush a balance beam, to sort of try to paint a picture. Just like really in control of himself, not at all sort of like uncoordinated or unsure of how to use his immense gifts. Like, he's got that on lock. He was super fast at the combine. In the 3/4 sprint at the combine, he had the 5th fastest speed of anyone, right behind Cedric Coward and Jeremiah Fears, 2 guys I really like at the number 9 for the Raptors as well. He's like, defensively, like, he's just going to be a damn good defensive player. I think the defensive playmaking, the footwork, the instincts, all that stuff, it's right there. He's going to be a very good above average wing defender. Will he be like all defense level, Kawhi stuff? Probably not, because that's damn hard to do. I don't think he's going to be like OG Anunoby level defense, but I think like a tier below that, certainly on the table, the kind of guy who's just going to be very additive to a basketball team. Also, crucially, shout out Patrick Redford from Defector. He knows where to stand. It's a very crucial skill for any off-ball player, and Carter Bryant always seems to be in the right spot, filling in space where he needs to, rotating to the right spot on offense to fill in a gap after a cut, cutting when it's the right time for him to cut, not cutting into other people's drives and things like that. Knows where to stand. And honestly, man, I mentioned OG Anunoby. He is, and I don't like to do player comps, and he's not OG because OG is like, one of the strongest men alive, and I don't think that's Carter Bryant. But as far as like the style of prospect, I think pretty similar in terms of OG was this guy who came in and it was basically defense and threes to start. And he was a helpful winning player basically from Jump Street because defense and threes go a long way. Again, I think there needs to be a little bit more in terms of creative ability for guys to really be truly additive players now. You can't just be stationary threes and D unless your defense is off the charts incredible, which in OG's case, it kind of was. Never forget locking down James Harden in like his second career start. Awesome stuff. But I think with Carter Bryant, like, I do think there's a world he just kind of walks in next year, even as a 19-year-old, and is just like comfortable on an NBA floor in a low usage role. He played a low usage role at school. He's used to it by now. Just kind of filling in those gaps, offering defense and size and shooting. And then you kind of take the long game and sort of fill in the rest of the game as time goes on. The odd possession here and there where maybe he tries to hunt a mismatch. Maybe you give him, 1 or 2 pick and rolls a game to see how the handle's coming along. And that's the thing that's still going to take some time. Him and Fleming both don't have great handles right now, not really creating anything for themselves. It's all very much dependent on assisted buckets from others who, take the defensive attention and leverage that to get good looks for a guy like Bryant or Fleming standing off the ball. When it comes to Bryant, though, I do think there's a little bit more there than Fleming when it comes to just like passing feel and like connective passing and stuff like that. Again, very low minutes total, but if you protract it out per 40 minutes, a couple assists a game, not an incredible assist to turnover ratio because again, it's just such a small sample with him. It's also weird to sort through the numbers, but I think with Bryant, like, you just like when you watch the clips, like, yeah, there's like some moments of really nice connective passing, kind of going into the feel stuff, the know where to stand stuff, like all of that, just kind of understanding how team basketball works. I think Carter Bryant has a pretty good grasp of that. And I think over time, that's something you can nurture, right? Can he become someone who works in the short role for you? Can he be a guy who, flashes middle and helps bust zones, stuff like that? I think there is that kind of passing for him. I don't think he's ever going to be like this big wing creator. It's kind of a low upside, kind of underwhelming package that he brings to the table on offense, honestly. Like, I would not be sort of penciling him in as this sort of guy you draft at 9, and then all of a sudden in 3-4 years, you're running offense through him. But that's okay. At number 9, if you just get like a really high-end starter, that's awesome. And I do think he could be a very high-end starter who's just the kind of guy that every team wants and needs and is looking for. And if you're thinking about fit, I mean, throwing him into a lineup with Quickly and Ingram and Scotty and Pirtle, like that makes total sense. That'd be a perfect guy to slot in to kind of offer those sort of role player skills around the sort of core pieces of the team. Maybe not next year because he's a rookie, but like, again, I think he could hang in those lineups just fine because he just knows his lane. He doesn't step out of it. He doesn't, play beyond himself. I think that's an important trait to have. Dunks off of cuts a lot. I think you could totally see him just like catching lobs from Jakob Pirtle, working at the elbow, as we saw with Ochai Agbaji a ton this year. I mean, everyone caught dunks from Jakob Pirtle, cutting baseline this year. I think that'd be a thing he does quite well. And yeah, I think I have Bryant certainly ahead of Fleming. And as far as like a fit with the Raptors, I think he's a very clearly much better fit than Collin Murray-Boyles. I hesitate to put Bryant ahead of Collin Murray-Boyles because I do think if the shot hits with Collin Murray-Boyles, he's just the best player here pretty comfortably. The on-ball stuff is just way more advanced than it is with Bryant or Fleming. But if you want like a safe yet sort of upsidey pick, someone who projects to be at the very least like a pretty solid starting level player in the NBA, you could do a lot worse than Carter Bryant at 9 and hope that you can kind of massage the other parts of his offense along over time. But yeah, it's an interesting forward class, man. Like there's a lot of guys who are like, I think gonna be NBA players for a long time. Cedric Coward certainly comes into this mix as well. We're going to talk about him probably more at some point tier 2 because, man, I'm really talking myself into him. He might be my favorite of all these guys, honestly, at number 9. I know that's maybe a little bit, rich for some people. Just take your favorite guy. Take whoever you think is the best guy. I don't really care about consensus boards or anything like that. But yeah, it's a fun class of forwards. It's a lot of guys who, if the Raptors end up with any of them, I think, it's nice to add that wing size to the mix. I think they can still use that. They're so guard oriented right now, 6'5" and under. Can't go wrong. I think I have a tough time with Bryant getting like too excited, right? I'm not sitting here like, oh yeah, got to get Carter Bryant. But if he's the pick, I'll be like, okay, sure. Yeah, I totally get it. 100% understand it. And I think the shooting is like going to be good. It's like a baseline skill that's probably going to be there for him. Even though the free throw is 69.5%, it's not like amazing. So, but 37% on 3 attempts a game and 19 minutes a game, that's not bad at all. You can work with that as a freshman for sure. And so, yeah, if I'm ranking these 3 guys, in my heart, it's Murray-Boyles, Bryant, Fleming. If I'm going fit on the Raptors, it's Bryant, Murray-Boyles, Fleming. And, or it might be Bryant, Fleming, Murray-Boyles. The fit's just not great, but man, I just want that delicious ice cream. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for rocking with the show. We have a big event tomorrow on the show as Sahal Abdi and Vivek Jacob will be along as we will take up the over-unders from this year. Obviously, one of our favorite episodes of the season. We will hand out the winner of the listener over-unders contest as well, which I'm very excited to see. I'm going to go tally it up later on today and see who won. A pair of tickets to a game next season is going to whoever has the most correct picks. Very excited for that. And do I win my first ever over-unders contest in 8 years doing it on the podcast? Do I? Who knows? I really hope so, man. Really hope so. It's time. It's time, right? It's this is the year? Question mark? Yes. Anyway, thank you so much for rocking with the show. We'll be back again with that on Wednesday. We'll of course have more draft stuff going forward here. And who knows? Maybe we'll talk about some trades, some off-season scuttlebutt, et cetera, all kinds of good stuff going on. It's the fun time of year, baby, with the draft and free agency and trades and all that stuff coming up. So stay tuned here on the show for coverage of all of that. And in the meantime, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, et cetera, et cetera. Join the Discord. Link in the description of the podcast. 100% free to join as always. And we will talk to you on Wednesday with an episode of Locked On Raptors. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye.